9% of water innovations make it and cross the chasm. That section of the graph here. The number itself is not shocking. That's the typical success rate venture capitalists expect from their portfolio. But when a VC company makes it, it may make it big. Think of ByteDance, Airbnb, SpaceX, and generally speaking, unicorns. Meanwhile, there is no water unicorn, and that's not the only significant difference with other fields.
The surprising thing about the water sector is the number that they don't disappear or fail, and they don't really make it.
Paul O'Callaghan is the founder and CEO of BlueTech Research and the author of Dynamics of Water Innovation.
They kind of live in this kind of no man's land, this gray area, gray zone, where they're neither very successful and yet they kind of hang on for a decade or 2 decades.
Does innovation tick at a different pace in the water industry? Well, R&D investments may, with an average of 2 to 4% of revenue invested back in innovation. But that may not yet be the proper focus.
How much of that 2 to 4% results in growth to the business or a competitive advantage or value creation? Because that's what's going to sustain that. And if companies see that return on 2 to 4%, well then they might say, well, why don't we invest 5 or 6% or 7 or 8%?
So what matters is the success rate, the time to adoption, and the clear sight of what you're currently developing. That's important because not all water innovations are born equal. You can actually divide them into 2 main types: value-driven, an innovation that adds value and improves the status quo, and need-driven, an innovation that directly answers a crisis and solves a vivid pain. Well, guess what? The second outperforms the first by a mile.
It moves at literally half the speed that a value-driven innovation does through the adoption cycle. It can half the timeline.
In his thesis on the dynamics of water innovation, you'll find the link in the description, Paul revisited the Moore curve to create the water technology adoption model that depicts the adoption cycle.
Innovators.
A technology completes its pilot testing and gets 3 full-scale demonstration facilities up and running.
Early adopters.
The technology gets installed in 25 to 30 reference plants. It's not yet specified, but 2 to 3 companies can offer the technology.
Early then late majority.
The technology is called for in tenders, presented at trade shows and conferences. It made it.
So if you're a startup company today in 2021 and you just did your first pilot, you would expect that maybe in 12 to 16 years time, this would be a mainstream market opportunity.
The technology development race is over, knowledge is widely spread across the engineering community, the technology enters books and university courses. Now that we know all of that, can we put it in practice to build the next big thing?
What race is this horse in? You pick the right race. And then after that, you try and choose the right horse.
BlueTech identified that 73% of water investments could be traced back to 3 key themes: digital, decentralized, and circular. That's our race. Then our horse needs to have radical functionality or a discontinuous type of innovation. And finally, the person riding the horse needs to have the right skills.
So it's people who are in there for the right reasons and are committed to it are the types of folks that have been able to lead the transformative changes that we've seen in the past.
We have the race, the horse, and the person riding it. Let's kick it off. Let's find our early adopters.
It's not a utility, it's not a corporation, it's an individual within that group. They're often the people that are out there speaking and presenting at conferences. You need to try and find those folks.
And boom, here we go on the track to a moonshot. If you'd like to apply this knowledge to solve a crisis, have a look at how we're currently failing to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. And if you'd like to dive deeper into the dynamics of water innovation, the link to my full interview with Paul O'Callaghan is in the description.